So our tutorial today is about zoonosis. Now zoonosis is a word you haven't heard before probably. Obviously it comes from the word zoo, referring to every species. So a zoonosis is a disease that's transferable from any species to humans, and a reverse zoonosis is a disease that's transferable from humans towards another species. So zoonotic disease is a very important category of health and safety for anyone who works with animals, from farming to veterinary to zoology, kennels, right down to the level of dog grooming and any type of a setting, even with domestic pets, doggy daycare. Zoonosis is very important. Okay, I always say to people, a dog is a member of the family, but not a human member. And there's a range of diseases that, some of which are even more serious, that are transferable from dogs and cats, from the common family pet dog, to people who work with that dog, such as the vets or vet nurses or animal carers. So humans infected by animals, that's a zoonosis or a zoonotic disease. Animals infected by people, that's a reverse zoonosis. Now, how do these types of transmission or types of infection occur? What are the methods of transmission? Well, epidemiologists study these methods of transmission. They're always considering the methods of transmission. You'll remember during the COVID epidemic, things of a very scientific nature, like epidemiology and methods of transmission, came into the common public parlance, came into the media. People were talking about suddenly methods of transmission, and everyone got up to speed very quickly with the need to wear masks to control transmission, wash your hands, be careful touching surfaces, all of those things. So methods of transmissions can vary depending on the type of disease it is and depending on the species you're working with. So these methods are, first of all, direct contact. So direct contact means you get the disease from the carrier, from the animal that's carrying the disease, and that will be either through air, coughing, breathing, inhalation, that type of contact, a bite, or saliva, scratch. So direct contact is touch or inhalation. Now indirect contact, right, that's objects, surfaces, counters, that sort of thing. Indirect contact is also clothing, tools, stable doors, windows, brushes, wheelbarrows, clothing, any type of indirect contact like that, right? And then the third form of transmission, vector-borne. That's an intermediate, something else carrying the disease. Now a vector would be typically a tick, right? So malaria, for instance, is transferred by a vector, by a mosquito, right? Different fevers, which is tick-borne fever, a big category of disease in countries, principally in the continent of Africa. There are a lot of tick-borne diseases, right? That tick-borne, B-O-R-N-E, tick-borne means carried by ticks, tick-borne diseases. So the tick bites one species and then bites another and brings malaria with it, right? Or in the case of what can happen here, Lyme disease is a tick-borne. Lyme disease is people who work with animals can get Lyme disease, and that's carried by ticks. The fourth category now would be food or waterborne diseases. So by food, the reason why there's a lot of inspection and safety around food hygiene, and that's because you can get diseases from the food, from the animal that food originated from. So eating beef, eating pork, eating chicken, you can catch diseases that species had animal carried internally in its body when it was alive. So that's foodborne. Again, waterborne as well. You can get waterborne disease by sharing water. Again, principally in warm countries, waterborne diseases can be an issue, but also waterborne diseases can be an issue here with us. This is why constantly changing the water bowls can be a factor. In theory, you could catch something from handling with your hands inside buckets where sick animals have all been drinking. So they'll transmit diseases to each other through water, and in theory they can transmit certain diseases to you through water. Just to give you the range of diseases or the lists of diseases that are classed as zoonosis, right? I'll ask a question first. Do you know what? I'm going to see, do you know three? Do you know three zoonosis diseases or zoonotic diseases?
Rabies.
Rabies, good. That's the one, that's the very first one, top of our list, because it's considered the most dangerous. It's probably not actually the most dangerous in the sense that it's not the most contagious. But it is the one everybody knows about.
Yeah.
And luckily, that's not a concern. I'd say maybe to the degree of 1 million to 1 in this country.
Yeah.
In this country, presently. So somebody gave me another one.
Mange.
Mange, good. That's a good one because it's a common one. And it's nasty. A third one.
Ringworm.
Yeah, good. That's another one. And that's a good one because it's really common, relatively benign, but a nuisance and nasty and very common. So, other ones. They're the first three that I had on my list. Rabies, ringworm, mange. Now, there's another one that puppies carry called Giardia. That comes from diarrhea. There's another one that lots of species carry called leptospirosis. That comes from urine. Toxoplasmosis. Cats carry it in their feces. Toxoplasmosis is harmful to pregnant women. Cat scratch disease. There's a bacteria called Bartonella that you can catch. A nasty, fluey symptoms type of septicemia. Cat scratch disease. And you can literally get that in through your skin and into your bloodstream from being scratched by a cat or bitten by a cat. Another one called toxocara or toxocariasis. Now that's roundworms. Puppies, a lot of dogs do, but principally puppies carry roundworms. Adults, children, humans, everybody can contract roundworm from poor hygiene around handling dogs and in particular puppies. Lyme disease, you know what that is? It's a lifelong type of a fading flu. It takes years to get over Lyme disease.
In a human.
In a human. And dogs are bad, and doctors are bad at diagnosing it.
What's the symptoms like? It's
Fluid
fluish.
symptoms.
Yeah.
Fluid symptoms. Now, there's a bunch of other common ones. If you work with farm animals, ORF. ORF is a bit like ringworm. It's a type of a fungus they get in their feet. Can be transferred to humans. It's a virus. Skin virus, it's nasty, right? Ringworm we talked about. Ringworm goes between dogs, cats, mice, horses, cattle, sheep in a cycle. And it's equally harmful and transmissible and contagious to people as it is to horses and cats. And nasty enough if you get it, right? Tetanus. You've all heard of tetanus? Yeah. You ever get bitten by a dog or scratched by a cat? You need to have your anti-tet. Make sure your tetanus is up to date. Like at the start of this journey of working with animals, all of you need to go home and make sure that your tetanus status is up to date. Working with cattle, TB. TB is a big problem. Brucellosis. Brucellosis is another common one. Years and years ago, when brucellosis was very common in cattle in this country, lots of vets and people who work with cattle used to get brucellosis. There's another one you get from birds called psittacosis. That's a type of a flu, nasty enough. Now, all of these things are out there. They're not necessarily that common in the species you're working with, but there's the potential to catch any of these things, again, through bad hygiene and bad animal husbandry techniques. Bad personal hygiene habits, and or poor or lax hygiene practices and animal husbandry practices in the places where you might work. Prevention of zoonosis. Prevention of zoonosis, right? Gloves, hand washing, masks, keep your contact sensible, right? By that I mean don't humanise the animals. You love them and you respect them and you're good to them, you're kind to them, but humanisation and kissing and letting them lick you and all the rest of it is a bad idea. Now the good news is, as regards cleaning and hygiene, most good disinfectants are effective. We use a lot in the hospital of one called Trigene, which is antivirus and antibacterial and anti-everything. But bleach, good strong bleach, is 99.99%. You can rely on bleach. You just have to use plenty of it, you use it every day. Ventilation is equally important because a lot of these diseases are even the ones that come from urine or feces, in certain weathers, both bacteria and viruses can be aerosolized, meaning that they're in the air because of a warm temperature or because of high relative humidity in the air. So you always have to be conscious of the need to include ventilation, fresh air, and an ambient temperature. Rooms that are too warm are not healthy. The main reason why we are so particular and fussy about vaccinations in and out of doggy daycare, dog training, kennel settings is to prevent disease spread amongst the animals. And some of the diseases that we vaccinate our dogs against are also zoonotic diseases. So typically in this country we vaccinate our dogs against 8 different diseases. 4 of those, which are the 4 leptospirosis ones, are zoonosis. So you can catch leptospirosis from an unvaccinated carrier dog. Epidemics, more often than not in human history, have come from another species, not from just ourselves. Right? The Black Death or the plague in the 14 and 1500s that wiped out 40% of the population of Europe. That was spread by rats on ships, from city to city, and 40% of people died. That was the zoonosis. So this is why working with animals requires a lot of care and attention to your own personal hygiene, your own personal health and safety, as well as theirs.